Hello and welcome to Off the Fence, brought to you in association with Bet365. You know the drill. This is your weekly rundown of all things jump racing, and as always, I am joined by Tony Keenan. How are you, Tony? I actually wanted to ask you, we're in the last week of January. How are your New Year's resolutions going? That sort of like get fit, New Year, New You chat.
Actually, not too bad. Try keeping it up reasonably well. I actually think in some ways the lockdown has helped. You've nothing better to be at than doing a little bit of exercise every now and then and watching a bit of sport.
Like it, impressive. And Barry, you stated the claim that you were already perfect or whatever it was at the start of the year, so I won't catch up with your New Year's resolutions, but how are you otherwise?
No, I'm good. I'm sticking to I would say non-clean living.
Good to hear it. Great. I'm glad lockdown is going well for everyone over in Ireland. We are going to crack straight on with a look back at what happened where this week. Usual system here. So we're going to look back delve straight in to the Grade 1 action at the weekend, which was, of course, at Ascot, live on Sky Sports Racing, where we saw the Clarence House. And it was a nice deep field this time around. Lots of sort of question marks coming into it, and a surprise winner, a 14-1 winner in first flow. Tony, what did you make of the race as a whole, and where do you think it leaves the 2-mile chase division going forward?
Yeah, very interesting race. Sometimes this race can be quite a one-sided affair. You'd have a short price favourite in it. It did have a relatively short price favourite, I suppose, on Saturday, but it was more competitive. Pace seemed to be a big thing. I thought the set-off reasonably slow, but David Bass on first flow, went up to press Politolo quite early in the race, and I think they will go very hard from then. Look, we've chatted about this before. It wouldn't be a ride you'd see in Ireland maybe too often, but I think it was very effective for the race that it was. Him that likes the really testing ground, and he did put Politolo under a bit of pressure. Nothing else really got into it. As regards champion chase, the winner, the trainer was saying beforehand he thought the ground might be too fast for him at Ascot even, and it was soft, heavy in places, so you'd have to think spring ground probably wouldn't be his cup of tea. As to the second, he didn't do his champion chase chances many favours, I would have thought. He's had a hard race there. The connections have spoken before how he's very good fresh. It's quite a short window of time now to freshen him up. So that will be a challenge, and I want not to say they're left behind a champion chase in Ascot in January, because he's a sort of horse that they do like to run. But I wouldn't think it was ideal.
No, okay, I would agree with that on many strands of that. Anyway, Barry, from your point of view, A, was it an inspired ride, and B, at 14-1 as an anti-post price for the champion chase at the festival come March, will First Flow be able to do that sort of? Will he be able to reenact that sort of race around Cheltenham, I guess?
Well, it was a really good performance for starters, and I think the ground is probably a big key to him. I think he'll need soft ground to produce a performance like that in that company at Cheltenham, where I think on better ground he could be found out. As regards the ride, David Bass gave him a brilliant ride, which is, it's always when you ride the winner, you always did the right thing. But Harry Cobden set a nice steady pace early and was dictating it from the front. He mentioned in an interview beforehand that we didn't want to let it turn into a sprint for Daffy Desai, and he didn't want to make it a test of stamina for waiting patiently. So he was trying to find the middle ground, and he was doing that nicely. But all credit to David Bass, he was aware of that, and he pressed Harry going away from the stands and really started to use his horses jumping on the soft ground and made it a test. And that was the winning of the race. As regards Politolog and the champion chase, I think as a 2-mile chase, I think he has enough time to recover. But although Politolog is a very good horse, I'm just not sure he's the greatest champion chase winner or Tingle Creek winner we've seen. So I think he was showing up for being a good horse, but not maybe being a superstar. So he was vulnerable for me beforehand. He was vulnerable for the champion chase. I think they'll both have their hands full with Chacun Poussoir, and if Altior happen to return to his best as well, I think they have a bit to find with him too.
Yeah, I'd agree with much of that, but a quick word from you as well on Deffy's performance. Just in terms of going ahead now with him, I know I pitched it to you this time last week. I said he was on a bit of a recovery mission, and you kind of said, well, you know, reasons, and ran through the kind of excuses for those 2 Cheltenham flops, but that wasn't the real Deafy either. And I know he's been out in the doldrums before and come back, but is it an unrealistic ask now? Well, not unrealistic ask. Can he come back for a champion chase?
Well, he ran well to a point. You could see going to the 4th last stick, he was travelling nicely. He jumped really well. He seemed to travel well through the race. But I knew on landing at the back of the 4th last that it wasn't going to happen for him. So there's something to miss. He was in good shape. He was well prepped for the day. Hopes were high. He was in good form at home. So there's something wrong. And unless they can put their finger on that and sort it, he's definitely struggling at the minute anyways to recapture that form. So unless he can find improvement, he's going to really struggle.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest worry in a way, is that like after they keep running these tests and they don't find anything wrong with him, and it's all a bit of a mystery. But the spark has gone. The spark has not gone, however, in Roksana, who is absolutely flying at the moment, Barry. She's a mare really on a kind of upward trajectory, and I mean the performance, I know it was a grade 2, and I guess you can probably pick holes in a bit of the form, but that was a pretty impressive performance, whichever way you look at it, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely. She hacked up, and Magic of Light is a good yardstick among mares. But I think the key to Roksana is to step up to 3 Mile and how well she's done since she has done that. She's beaten 10 lengths by Honeysuckle last year on the Mares Hurdle at the festival. She's only beaten 2 lengths by Paisley Park and Time Hill in the Long Walk Hurdle. And for me, the Stairs is the way to go, because the Mares Hurdle looks as hot as any race at the festival, and she seems to be more effective over 3. So I'd rather be taking on Paisley Park and Time Hill with 2 lengths to find than Honeysuckle with 10. So she has shown improvement, but for me it's a step up in trip.
Yeah, bang on the money. That's exactly what I think in regards to the mares or the stayers. And it's a funny one because she's 14-1 with the stayers hurdle. She's a bigger price for that than she is for the mares hurdle, where she's 8-1. But like you say, Barry, both races are very hot, but in terms of trip and ground to make up, I definitely have her for the stayers for me personally. But very impressive performance at the weekend. We can move on to Haydock, Tony, where we saw more impressive performances, not more so than Royale Pagaille, who's dotted up in the Peter Marsh chase. I love his jumping. I love how economical he is. When you watch him over a fence, he just kind of measures them to perfection. He's wasting no energy, no time at all, and he's an improver. What did you make of that performance, Tony, and where do you see him going next?
Very impressed with this performance. Sure, winning it off what was a 156 so easily. He has to be rated well into the 160s now. I was just have a bit of a question for the two of you. I was doing a little bit of digging here earlier on. He'd be a very. It seems that the Gold Cup is on the cards to a degree anyway. He's not going to. I would say it's highly unlikely he's going to run against Monkfish in the same ownership. But here's a question for you. I look back to the Gold Cup in the last 23 years. There's been 67 horses that have come out of. Had their last run in the Gold Cup, before the Gold Cup, in a handicap chase, and 2 of them have won. Now, who are the 2 horses?
Oh, honestly, you're so mean throwing that to me. We have these production meetings and you need to pre-warn me about these things.
Master
I have
Oates.
absolutely no idea.
Barry Geraghty,
Master Oates in the Welsh National.
He's not. Now, Barry Geraghty, you're a disgrace now. You don't know the answer to one of these. I'm very disappointed in you.
Oh,
Bob's in the Hennessy, yeah.
Well
sorry,
done,
yeah.
well done, Barry. Well done.
Barry, that could have been so disappointing, Barry. Well done. You pulled it back.
Well,
Who's the other one?
The other one might be a little bit of a struggle. You have to go back a bit for the other one. The other one was Cool Dawn. So the one, it'd be. I'm not flagging. It'd be unusual, and usually the type of horses that would be going from handicaps would be outsiders and big price horses. But Cool Dawn and Bob's Ward are the 2. Obviously, there's a couple of others in recent years. Jacket Am would have come from the TS days. Would have been one. There obviously would have been horses that have won the Gold Cup off handicap backgrounds, Synchronized and Native River and that. Although those type of stats, he'd be a kind of horse I would like for the race. An improving young horse. Look, will Cheltenham be a track he hasn't run there? We don't know. Haydock can be a somewhat unusual test. The second favourite fell before the race began there, but visually it was very good. Official ratings are going to put him into the mix. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't throw him out for the Gold Cup. He'd be on a short list anyway.
Oh, love that. On the shortlist at 12-1 currently for the Gold Cup. And obviously he's priced up for other races as well. Barry, just a quick word from you. Do you concur with those thoughts? Would you say that he's on the shortlist for a Gold Cup at this stage, winning that race off that mark?
I think soft ground is a key to him. He won nicely in Kempton, but he was more impressive. He jumped better in Haydock on softer ground when he had more time to measure. He is economical. I wouldn't call him maybe the most flamboyant jumper in the world. So I think he benefits from the slower pace on softer ground. So I think if it was soft ground, I'd be going for the Gold Cup. If it was better than soft, I'd be going for the 4 mile.
Interesting, very interesting. One horse that probably doesn't want the soft ground he had to encounter at the weekend is Buveur D'Air, Barry. Beaten by Navajo Pass and now 22-1 shot for another champion hurdle come March. Just your thoughts on Buveur D'Air's comeback. I know when we spoke on the show last week, you said that if you saw him run with a good bit of zest, jump slickly and then tire, you wouldn't be disappointed at all. And that's essentially what happened. So what did you make of it?
Well, I suppose that is what happened, but you didn't expect it to be the outsider to beat him. You thought if he finished second to Ballyandy, it was a good run. So, soft ground or heavy ground wouldn't be a real problem to him as such. I suppose the negative for him on the day with that ground was because it was only his first run in 12 months or 13 months, and it's only a second run for 18 months. So, when fitness is the thing, and if you're fit and race fit, you have a big advantage on that ground. The winner was 17 pounds wrong with him, but had the benefit of a run. But he's going to have to improve a lot to get involved in the champion hurdle. But you have to allow a certain amount for improvement. He is a horse who does improve for his races, and he's a horse who's better kept busy than a fella who you'd run fresh. So he will improve for the run, but he has a good bit to improve.
Yeah, I think given that now he's had that run under his belt and he's going to go to a race that we know, look, he's probably not going to come back to his best at the age of 10, but in an open affair after the red hot favourite currently, he might outrun his odds of 22-1. But what do you viewers think? Get involved, please. Let us know. What did you make of the weekend action? Did you think that we saw a Cheltenham horse or an Aintree horse or any other sort of horse, actually? Just we want to hear from you in the comments section. Retweets, likes, subscribe. You know the drill. Facebook comments, YouTube comments. Our guys behind the camera read them all. So please do get involved. But on that note, sticking with the champion hurdle, actually, we are, of course, 7 weeks away from the Cheltenham Festival. And as a result, some of the championship race entries have come out, and we are going to look at the anti-post markets over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to pick one of the championship races each week, and this week we are rolling with the champion hurdle. So we're going to give you a bit of an anti-post preview of that race, and Tony, I think I'll come to you first. Let's start with the Irish-English form. Obviously a big form line over in Ireland is Sharjah winning the Matterton Hurdle for a third time. Do you think he's improved this year? Is Sharjah an improver, and is he overpriced at the moment for the champion hurdle?
Yeah, I think there is a possibility this horse has improved a little bit this season. The thing that would suggest that to me at Leopardstown is that he was coming off a break and was able to win so well. Looking at his form over previous seasons, he was always a horse that improved for a run. And that would just say that he has improved a little bit, and does seem, I think Barry's has mentioned this, that he is a little bit more effective on the slower ground. Now, the other thing I think that we found out at Christmas is that the Morgiana hurdle form probably isn't going to be good enough. Can't really draw any conclusions from Abacadabra's effort there, but Sandra had things go right, pace, etc., and just didn't deliver. So that form line, to me, you're going to have to find improvement out of nowhere on that angle. Abacadabra's, he was disappointing at Christmas, but the thing that he does have in his favour is that he's very effective over the champion hurdle course and distance shape so well in the Supreme last year. Like, he's only just beaten by the horse that everyone is saying is borderline unbeatable in the Arkle, and their level ends clear the Tour with some good horses back there. So he has potential. The other Irish horse that I want to talk about is Saldier. He got a strange sort of a ride in a strange race at Christmas. Like, to me, he almost looked like he was in it as a spoiler, to give Aspire Tower a bit of a no peace up front. Now, I'm sure connections will inform me that wasn't the case, but from an outsider looking in with a cynical eye, that's what it looked like. He's run about £20 below his best there, but they have been saying all along that March is the aim with him, so it would be interesting to see if he runs at the Dublin Racing Festival, will he improve, and what's he going to do in March. I am interested. I actually have a bet in this. I backed this horse after the Morgiana hurdle. I backed the Spire Tower for the race, on the idea that he had beaten the Morgiana hurdle form up and down Royal. Admittedly getting weight, but that's weight for age. And he's the improving horse on the Irish scene at the moment for me. He has ground to get back with charge, and he's going to be worse off at the weights, but I think there's natural improvement with him at his age. I love the way he's been trained this year. He looked brilliant on his first 2 starts last year, but on the second of those at Christmas time, I think he went very close to bottoming himself, and he wasn't the same horse at Dublin Racing Festival for all that he could have won. Ran fine at Cheltenham, all things considered, but I would say the extended break suited him. He's come back, career best at Down Royal, another career best at Christmas. He'll need to improve again to win a champion hurdle, but I would say that's quite likely that he will, if he can sharpen up his jumping. He wasn't great at the third last, wasn't great at the second last at Christmas time. So there's a lot going on. It's a very complicated race. In some ways, last year's champion hurdle was quite a simple race, and I complicated it for myself. I finished up back in Super Sunday amongst others. It was just Epatante was the best horse, and it was just was she going to really act around Cheltenham. Now, this season, we know that she's effective around Cheltenham, but we're kind of wondering what form is she in, because she was that bit disappointing at Christmas just gone. And I would have a little question over that Christmas hurdle form. Silver Streak looks one that could be a little bit short in the market to me. Yes, there was a change in tactics, but reflecting back, Epatante wasn't it herself. If Ballyandy was beaten further in that Haydock race at the weekend where everything looked set up for him, he's a horse that just doesn't seem to be firing at the minute either. So I think with Epatante, she's short now. It's nearly factored in that Nicky Henderson is absolutely certain to get her back. I'd say there's a good chance, but at the prices at the minute, I would still kind of lean towards a Spire Tower, and Sharjah is to me reasonably solid also.
Very interesting. So 2 to flag up, I guess, are Aspire Tower, who's currently 14-1 with Bet365, and Saldier at a bigger price, just a bit of a horse that you think we should just keep a sort of flag on at 25-1 currently with Bet365. Barry, Tony has mentioned there the fact that essentially the market, Epatante is 9-4 currently to win another champion hurdle, and that it's factored into a price that we are all believing that Nikki will get her back bouncing. What's your reaction to Tony's comments re our Christmas hurdle form? Because I know you're a big Silver Streak fan, aren't you?
I am, yeah. And some of Nicky's just didn't fire on all 6 cylinders at Christmas. You know, he had plenty of winners, but some didn't just turn up, and she didn't maybe put her best foot forward, and for her to not travel to the third last the way she normally would, I think was a really telltale sign that she just wasn't at herself. But it wasn't a desperate run, and it wasn't 2 or 3 bad runs she's put together. She's just underperformed once, so I think you can very much forgive her that. The vibes are very good on her, and there's no one better to produce a champion hurdler than Nikki, so I'd have every faith in him getting her back, and I think she's a worthy favourite for that reason. But I thought the Silver Streak, the way they run with Christmas, just opens up a few different avenues for him as regards the champion hurdle. He doesn't necessarily have to make it, but he's a horse who stays well, and I think that's when they had to drop him in over hurdles up till this point, and a lot of that was got to do with jumping, because I'd ridden him myself in the Buveur hurdle at in Cheltenham in December a few years back, and he finished second to Brain Power, and he missed the third last badly, and he missed the second last badly just when you're riding him aggressively. But he seems to be, he's more measured now at his jumping, so they can ride him forward, make use of him. As I said, they don't necessarily have to make it, but they can ride him in the van, they can ride him handy and use his stamina. And he's caught for pace in last year's champion hurdle, and he was running on again at the finish. So I think he's a horse with, at his age profile as well, he's still improving. So for me, I think the track is going to suit him, and if the ground was on the slow side, that could only help him as well. So I think he's a big player. I think Sharjah has improved. He won the Leopardstown hurdle the previous 2 years on good ground. He won it this year on soft, and he won it with authority. Patrick nursed him in the champion hurdle last year to finish second on soft ground, and he looked like a horse he was hanging on to him, where he seemed to be able to ride with more confidence in Leopardstown. So I think he has improved. He's coping with softer ground better, which is a sign of just maturity, that he's just filling in and growing into himself. So for me, they're the two to oppose Epatante, but I think she's a worthy favourite.
Okay, interesting. Okay, then just the final question to you, Tony. Actually, just quick answer from two questions. A, at the moment coming into the race, is the British form or the Irish form at the high, does the Brits bring in a higher level of form than the Irish currently, or vice versa? That's my first question. And my second question is, if you were advising just one bet at the moment, what would it be, please?
I'm not going to answer your first question because that's factored into the price. Like we've got Epatante 9-4 and Silver Streak, whatever he is, 8 or 9-1, and we've got the two horses from Leopardstown, whatever, 8 or 9-1 and 14-1. To me, the 8-1 and the 14-1 would be far more interesting just at the prices. I would feel that the Irish form, it's not far behind, and it might actually be better. But as I would just stick with the horse that I've backed, Aspire Tower. I'm quite happy with him, and I believe he's going to be going there fresh, which I think does suit him, because he can be quite hard on himself. And I don't think that he's going to be one that's going to shorten up massively, because if he's not going to run, he's going to be in around the same price. And also, it looks like a race that I think a lot of horses will be keen to have a go, because Epatante has blotted a copybook to a degree. And I wouldn't agree with Barry, it wasn't a terrible run by any means. But I think there'll be big enough field, and there'll be extra places and different bits and pieces on the day. So there's no great rush, I would say, to back him. But he'll do me at the moment, and I'll reflect a little bit more on how the Dublin Racing Festival goes.
Yeah, definitely. We'll dissect a bit more then. And Barry, just from you, is it Silver Streak for you at the prices, given what you were just saying?
It would be. But I think Epatante, as I say, Epatante is the one. There's probably more depth to the Irish form. But Epatante is the one that they all have to beat. But Silver Streak for me would be value.
Okay, like it a lot. As always, who are you guys backing it out there? You viewers, who do you fancy for the champion hurdle at this point, with still a good 7 weeks to go? So lots of water to go to the bridge. Let's roll on to the usual section of the week, what we have taken offence to this week. And you've guessed it, I think all of the racing world has taken offence this week to the Charles Byrnes sort of nobbling incident. Whatever you want to call it. Obviously a lot of details of that particular incident came out this week. And Tony, I think it's fair to say, like I said just a second ago, you couldn't not take offence with this story, and it's pretty shocking when you read the papers that were released.
Yeah, it's like something out of one of Jamie Reid's historical books from the 50s and the 60s, really, to be quite honest. I think to say that it's reputational damage and it looks bad probably isn't strong enough. I'd say it's more actual damage. And it is bad. It's not just it looks bad. We've got a situation where someone who has authorised access to the stable yard at Tramore, to an Irish racecourse, we assume on and off, has nobbled, as the term they're using, a horse at over 100 times a limit of a threshold, that makes the horse totally lethargic, and so on. Now, on one level, there's a part of me thinks that there's kind of more to that than meets the eye. Like 100 times, is that so off the wall that has someone actually screwed up, if they made a mistake, whatever? That's all supposition. We don't know that, but it's totally bizarre stuff to think that someone would do that. But anyway, the other point I would make in racing, as regards the area of drug testing, there's not a strict liability policy. That applies in Ireland, that applies in the UK. We saw that with the Hughie Morrison case. And I'm not really sure how I feel about that, to be quite honest. In any other sport, they would think that's crazy. Like, if an athlete turns up with a substance in their body, it's their responsibility. Obviously, in this sport, the athletes are horses, which creates a distance and complicates the matter. And I think it is quite complicated. And I'm not a complete cynic on this stuff. Like, every time a positive test turns up, and I know there have been a lot more positive tests in Ireland, and to very different substances to what this Charles Byrnes case is to do with. Not all of those are cheating. Like, I'm only an outsider looking in. When I read the case notes, some of them read like the trainer has given an animal a medicine, right? And to me, that's perfectly permissible. If an animal is sick, you treat it, and they've got the withdrawal times wrong, or it hasn't withdrawn from that animal in the specified time. Now, there are other cases that read like they've got no excuse for this. The hypotheses that the people are coming up with as explanations aren't believable, and they're not being treated harshly enough. And that's something the AHRB need to take responsibility for. And sorry, what was the thing is, it is, as I say, come back to this strict liability thing, unless they have a smoking gun or a dripping syringe, as the case may be, like they had in the Philip Fenton case, this is just going to continue with these sort of suspended sentences and maybe fines that aren't really that significant. Look, as to the impact on me and my betting, like Charles Byrnes, I can count on one hand, I can count on one finger, to be honest with you, the number of Charles Byrnes horse-side backed in the last 5 years. I just don't do it. Like I'm using information that's publicly available, form, time, videos, all this type of stuff. Trying to play a small bit of common sense. Like a punter like me just doesn't back Charles Byrnes horses. Like I genuinely believe that. I've asked a couple of pals about this during the week. It would be very infrequent, because those connected with the horses just know far more than you about them. You're on a hiding to nothing doing it. And I do think that's a case. I'd say the only instance where this maybe the average punter was inclined to back them was the evening in Roscommon, where kind of the treble was on and stuff like that, and it was quite apparent from an early stage. But it wouldn't be a yard that I would be betting any horses out of really on a basis. Now, of course, the other big issue as regards a punter part of this is the thing to do with the exchanges. I feel underqualified to talk about this, but like that was worrying stuff. Like there's no dressing up the fact that was worrying stuff to read about, that someone in a far off place was laying the horses to lose X and whatever.
Mad numbers.
It was mad numbers, and on another hand, it wasn't mad numbers. Like I wouldn't describe them as totally mad numbers, but they were laying a 10-1 shot that its true price was probably about 10,000 to 1, and that might actually be McCain, because they had absolutely no chance when a horse has this ACT in its system. That's another worrying thing, and you would get the sense that these people are just beyond the jurisdiction of the IHRB, and what can be done about that, I don't know. As I say, other people more qualified than me can say, but as a more regular punter, yeah, it definitely wouldn't be. It wouldn't be encouraging you it wouldn't be instilling much faith in the system.
No, I think you've covered a good few worrying points there, and I guess we will wait for more information to come out in many areas. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and hopefully in time we will get a few answers to those questions. Barry, just a quick line on a couple of other news points from the week. David Mullins has retired from the saddle. Very talented young jockey in his mid-20s, and he's retired. A lot of people were very shocked by this. I think some people that know him might not have been that shocked, in the sense that he's got lots of talent and he's had good amounts of success in the saddle. I mean, brilliant success in the saddle, but he's a talented guy in other departments, and he's decided to move on and go into a different career going forward. From your point of view, was there ever a time when you were in your mid-20s that you even questioned a career, your life as a jockey?
And personally, no, not for me. No, I was very much one trick pony, so no, it was all in for me on the horses. But as regards Davis, a brilliant rider, and has had great success, but at the same token, he's probably a sign of the times as well, but he suffers lean times too. So albeit he gets good spares, or got good spares for Willie at the big meetings, he could go from Punchestown to Galway with very few competitive rides. So in essence, he's a journeyman jockey for the summer until he gets the call to ride a second or third string for Willie. So that's tough, and he'd no financial security, he'd no job security, and it's a big call to make at 24, to say to go and concentrate on something else in life. But he made a very good point to say, in saying that to do that at 24 makes more sense than doing it at 35. So, it was a big call. It was a very sensible call, really. And, it'd make you wonder why there isn't more fellas doing it, because the life of a journeyman jockey isn't, it's you're not making much money. It's hard graft. hours and days in the car for very little return. You know, you're living the dream and hoping for opportunity to come on your doorstep and a good horse, but it doesn't happen for everyone, and it's even got harder with, you know, the quality polarised in the major yards. Opportunities got harder for lads down the ladder a little bit. So it was a big call by David, but he's you know, he's a matter of fact kind of fella, and he called it and doesn't seem to have any regrets.
No, he definitely doesn't, and I think he's been quite surprised by the sort of shock reaction to the retirement call. Tony, what was your reaction to it? And also you brought in on our WhatsApp group the absolute opposite to David Mullins is Davy Russell, and you threw in that sort of clip that was on RTE a couple of weeks back now, where Davy was talking about how he's nowhere near ready to retire, and he's obviously almost twice the age of David Mullins. Not quite, actually, he'll take offence to that, but different mindsets, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know David Mullins, never met him in my life. I was very surprised. I was surprised the time of the year, the sort of horses that he'd be coming in to ride. I know Barry says he's a journeyman jockey. God, I don't know about that. He was 2A or 2B down in Willie Muns's, which to me is a top 10, top 15 job in Ireland. Maybe not in terms of pure volume of winners, but in terms of quality of horse that you're riding. He rode a lot of graded winners for a young fella. The fact that he came back from the injury and continued on. You know, he talked about feeling down in that very good interview he had with David Jennings. Yeah, that's human nature. That can happen to anyone. But personally, I was surprised. In terms of pure ability, I'm talking about nothing else. You know, because I do get the impression from his interview he didn't particularly want to maybe ride bad horses or put in the hard yards again. He was quite open to that. But in terms of pure ability on the racetrack, from the flag goes up to the 5 or 6 or 7 minutes it takes for the race to go on, I thought he was brilliant. There was something very creative, very imaginative about him that you maybe don't see in a rider too often. He would try something, change tactics on a horse, go to a different part of the track that he thought was better ground. Kemba is the prime example of this, but there's been other different horses he's done this on over his brief career, and I think it's a pity now, because I think he will be a loss. He will be a big loss to Willie Mullins to have such a good backup jockey. And yeah, but look, if he's happy with the decision, good luck to him. But as we were saying, someone who doesn't like to seem to be happy with any pressure of a decision to retire is Davy Russell. This interview that he gave on RT Racing on December 27th, I've never heard anything like it really, if it come from jockeys. And I think I'm not celebrating this again or anything like that. I'm just pointing it out. I think anyone looking in from the outside would say Davy Russell's a madman. And I wouldn't disagree with that. I'll just read you some of the lines here. Hugh Carl asked him, were you worried about it? No, he says, I wasn't worried. 90% of people don't leave walking, I was told by the doctor. I was pretty excited that there was a 10% chance that I might be okay. All he ever wanted to do was ride horses. It's an awful drug. And then he's chatting to Ruby and he says, I can't understand why Ruby, was so delighted. I felt so jealous of him riding the big winners. And he's been so open. I'd say he's quite an emotional guy. Like, it's so honest. And I can relate to that thing about it's a drug. Like, the sport is a drug. Like, Jesus Christ, I'll tell you, I was climbing the walls here on a Saturday and Sunday when Navan and Taurus were called off. And the only thing I'm putting in danger is a few quid, like. And I'm waiting to see when they're going to be rescheduled. I can't wait to get looking at them, and I'm excited already. Like, the sport is a drug. Like, he's absolutely right about that. But I can also see, geez, I just hope the chap. He doesn't seem a fella that's at peace at all with maybe someone saying to him that he should retire, and he is at an age where retirement would definitely be something you'd be thinking about. And I just hope he gets out in one piece, like Ruby did, and Barry did, and Tony Mackay did. Because just with that attitude, you would wonder if he's almost a little bit of a danger to himself.
Yeah, jockey retirement, it's a prickly subject. David Mullins at one end of the spectrum, getting out at 24, and David Russell still kicking on after terrible injuries, seemingly. And excited that he's in the 10% bracket that managed to walk out the hospital. We can move on to a look at the week ahead very quickly. We've got good racing up at Doncaster, live on Sky Sports Racing. We've also got good racing at Thurles midweek, and we've also got good racing at Cheltenham. Quick rattle, Tony, straight over to you. We get to see the rescheduled Horse and Jockey Hotel Grade 2 chase. Allaho here, Battleoverdoyen, same views as before?
Yeah, proper race this, and I think there's a full field that was scheduled for Sunday. Just Allaho at the minute, I hate to say this about a horse that has only had the 6 or 7 runs over fences, but this feels like, do or die day with him a little bit. He's a horse that when he's running over 2.5, he looks like he wants 4, though when he's running over 3, it looks like it's too far. He's getting in now on Wednesday, and he's getting in on Peenlays, he's getting wait for some of the others. This to me now would be the day that he kind of has to. I get the impression from anyone connected with him, he seems to work the place down, but he just hasn't delivered yet. And the horse actually I'm interested in, I think could give him a race, is a stablemate, Annamix. He had a huge reputation as a young horse. Never really put it together over hurdles. But he's been good over fences now. Won his first 2, and then I thought Christmas was a good run. He was in deep down. He was in against proven Grade 1 horses over 2 miles on decent ground. That's not him. That doesn't suit him at all. He wants 2.5 on softer ground, I would say. He took them along for the first mile, jumped away well. In the third quarter of the race, he just hadn't the pace to go with the 2 milers, and then he stayed on again. I think we could see a different performance out of him on Wednesday, back on the more suitable conditions. I think he can give Allaho a bit of a race.
Oh, very interesting. And Barry, the flip side of that is you're a Battleoverdoyen fan for this, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Well, he seemed to spring back to form in Down Royal in November, and I know he probably disappointed in the John Dorkin, but he's missed Christmas and he's going here. I think over 2.5, Battleoverdoyen is more at home. I think Allaho wants every yard of 3 mile. I just don't think we're seeing the best of Allaho this season for whatever reason. His run in the RSA was a brilliant run, but he hasn't backed it up at all this season. So I just don't think he's firing on all cylinders, but I think Battleoverdoyen loves 2.5, and I agree with Tony to a degree that Annamix could be the one from Willie's.
Interesting. Barry, sticking with you, because over at Cheltenham in the Cleve Hurdle, it looks like quite a weak renewal of the race, but we get to see Paisley Park back. What are we expecting from him this time around in that open sort of stairs hurdle division?
I'm sure everyone will get an anxious moment or two with Paisley Park off the bridle, maybe at the back of the third last, but no, there's nothing to contend with there. He'll have a penalty because it's a grade 2, but no, he's less to contend with than he had in Ascot or even Newbury before that, so no, I don't think we've any concern there. I'd suppose Doncaster will be of more interest, and Flinteur Sacre, there's a chance he could go up there on Friday. Nicky's found a good novice hurdle, which for me is the right kind of race to go for him, because you're up against more experienced rivals. You're going to get a stronger pace. Doncaster being such a flat track, you're nearly guaranteed a good gallop, so that's going to help him settle. So that could be a race that might work out well for him, so it'll be interesting to see how he does. And obviously then Shishkin is in Doncaster as well on Saturday, so but a bit like Paisley Park, he shouldn't have an awful lot to contend with up there either.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing Shishkin back in action there. Tony, just a quick word from you on your favourite horse in training, Santini, in the Cotswold chase at the weekend.
Oh God, you've caught me on the hop there. Wasn't prepared for this. Yeah, sure. Look, he's back. He's back again. He's back again. Himself and Bristol, the May renewed rivalry from last year. It'd look a more suitable race than he was in the last stage. Hopefully he'll go and prove himself again.
Okay, we like that. Santini fans on this Off the Fence show. We can move on very quickly because it is tracker time. I struggled myself with the tracker horse this time around, so I'm just throwing in a bit of a tip and the horse to put in your tracker. But Captain Ord in the Sky Bet Chase live on Sky Sports Racing this weekend up at Doncaster. He's going to go off favourite. I think he's currently about 3-1 favourite, but he's going to shorten. He's got this ridiculous form with Royale Pagaille from Kempton, and he's gone up £6 for that win. They pulled 19 lengths clear of the rest of the field that day, and of course Royale Pagaille is now a Gold Cup contender, as we have discussed. He probably should have been put up about £16 for that win, so I think Captain Ord is very well in. He's He's going to love the race conditions, and that's my tracker horse, but it's also my Sky Bet Chase tip for you. Tony, we're giving you a pass this week on a tracker horse because you're going to give us 2 next week. So we like that. And Barry, quick line from you on the tracker horse, please.
Yeah, I like Ollie Murphy trains Gunsight Ridge, who finished second in Newbury during the week behind Goal Road. It was in heavy ground. He's had 2 runs over hurdles previously, both on good ground. He was second and he won in Doncaster. I think he has a preference for better ground. He travelled really well. He was a little keen, but he was the horse who travelled best through the race. And just couldn't match maybe the winner from the last. But there was 4 of them in a bunch jumping the last, and I'd say they're maybe a progressive bunch. But for me, going on better ground, I think he's one to keep an eye on.
Gunsight Ridge for Barry Geraghty, like it a lot, going in the tracker, captain all for me, and we'll get 2 special entries from Tony next week for our tracker. As always, I'm worried my producers are going to shout at us because I think we've gone over time this week, but I hope you've enjoyed the show. Viewers, as always, we want your opinions, so please get involved. Comments on Facebook, comments on YouTube, anything on Twitter to myself, Tony or Barry. All feedback welcome. Subscribe, like, retweet, you know the drill. That was Off the Fence, brought to you in association with Bet365.